Tunisian is also known as Afghan crochet. The hooks that we're using are referred to as an Afghan hook. Just like so, you could call it Tunisian hook if you're looking online, if you're looking to purchase. So what we have here is that it appears to be a cross of knitting and crochet, so you're only using one hook, so you're getting a knitting appearance just like so, but actually just using one particular device instead of like two knitting needles in order to be able to achieve it. So crocheters really have the ability to make knitted looking items with an Afghan hook and not have to give up their love for crochet at the same time. It's also when it comes to the yarn, some yarns look better in crochet versus knitting. And so what you see here is a crochet version, and this is just single crochet, and this is Tunisian. You can see how the colors look a lot differently. I know it's even a different color, but you can actually see how well it actually blends in. Some yarns really lend itself better to knitting than it does crochet, and again, that's up to the project that you're working on. So this is one of those elements that if you love the look of a particular yarn and a knitted version but not so much in a crochet, the Tunisian gives you the power to be able to use your crochet hook and get the looks of knitting without actually learning how to knit. When doing Tunisian, just like so, you will notice that you're coming all the way across and you're picking up the stitches. It very much looks like a knitting needle at this point, but there's not another hook to worry about. What you're always gonna think about is that you're always going to go back and forth. You never ever turn your project unless that's the look you're going for. So for example, we're gonna pick up all of our stitches going all the way across, and then we just loop and then start bring them off on the other side, and we'll cover that when we're going to show you how to do stitches. So you never ever turn your project. Like crochet, you're gonna finish a row, you turn your project, you move up. This one here, you just go back and forth. Just visualize Fred Flintstone when he was eating corn on the cob and it's a ding, and then going back. It's like a typewriter, the same thing, bing, and go back. So it's the very same way Tunisian, you never turn your project and you're always looking at the front side when you're working on it, just like so. So what you're seeing here before I continue is that it's a combination of different stitches that are working together in order to create the ribs just like you see here. So how you wrap your hook and how you do all that really determines the look of your finished project as well. When it comes to your Tunisian hooks, you have to really pay attention to the size. Now what you're gonna notice in Tunisian patterns is that you're thinking that the hook size is way too big for the recommendation of the yarn. So for example, this is the Bernat Handicrafter. It's asking for a 5mm or a US size H crochet hook. Now you should know that if you try to do that with the Tunisian hook, that your work is gonna have a very severe curl to it. It's just gonna wrap and wrap and wrap. Because you're always working with the front side and the tension is always much greater in Tunisian, you're going to notice that it's gonna have like a scroll appearance and that it's really gonna roll. You should know that your work is going to roll anyway, but the amount of the roll matters on the size of the hook. So when you go to look at Tunisian patterns, if this is a 5mm or a size H, you should really move up two sizes, so a 6mm or a size a J or a K, and you can determine that. So when you go to see the sizes in Tunisian and you're thinking the hook is way too big for the recommendation of the yarn, you have to trust in it. There are many different types of sizes that you see and different lengths of a Tunisian Afghan hook just like this. So this is just one I bought at a regular craft store. You can go online. What I strongly recommend is that your Tunisian hooks are actually bamboo. Bamboo are much lighter than the actual steel or aluminum and are a lot easier. In the long term, just holding this hook with your project on it actually tires out your hand. So I'd recommend going with the bamboo. But what you need to watch out for, and don't be like me, is that off camera I have another hook that actually is made of bamboo. So let me pull it up here. And so this is another one. I left it in a cup and you can see that it's really warped. So if I go to put the two together, just like see, it's, let me just do it, there you go. See the warp on this thing? So this is the problem. I cannot use this hook. In actual fact, this hook is now garbage. When you go to try to use a warped one just like so, see the difference of the spin? It makes it very difficult to be able to do Tunisian. You gotta make sure that if you're using bamboo that you store it in a safe spot so they lay flat, so you don't ever have a warped hook. This makes a huge difference when it comes to the enjoyment. So look for bamboo, and if all else fails, look for plastic and then steel as your third choice if you're going to. Now here's an Afghan hook, but wait a minute, when I go to the other side there's a hook on this side. This is called the crow hook. You can use this for Tunisian as long as you're not worried about it actually popping off on the other end. Most of the Tunisian hooks have a stopper at the end to prevent the work from actually sliding right off. Now crow hooking is another technique used. It's also called crow knitting, and basically it allows you to carry two different kinds of yarns in your particular project to make a forward and a front and back side particular project with different colors. It's a really neat concept. So you really want to look for your project. So if you cannot find in the store something with a stopper, you can actually probably find something like this called a crow hook in order to make it work. Now you'll notice that some of the crow hooks, the hook is here, and then see how it's facing up on this side as well, so I haven't turned it. So that doesn't matter. So some of the hooks have it facing up on this side, and this side it's facing down. It doesn't really matter. It's all depends how you rotate your hook anyway. So just want to look for that when you're going. And what you really can't notice here, but it will happen as I'm showing you in the demonstration, is that there's always going to be a slight lean to your project. So whenever you're going to move yourself up, you will notice that the project wants to move up on a diagonal. Okay, very slight, but it's very noticeable. So unless you block it, it actually will always have a slight lean to it. So when you're doing clothing and stuff, you're gonna think, oh, it's not gonna work out, but in actual fact it's adjustable. So you just have to look for that. The reason why that's happening, just so that you're aware, is that you see how the one string is just slightly over. So if you look at it, it's just slightly over, the next one's slightly over, the next one's slightly over, and etc. That creates the lean just like so. So if that's happening in your project and you're not screwing up, this is part of the characteristics of your particular project. So just be conscientious of that. In the future tutorials that I have lined up for you, we're gonna downsize ourselves to the regular crochet hooks or Afghan hooks, just to be able to show you how to do that within a real project. But for tutorial reasons for this, I'm gonna show you with a big hook because it's just a lot easier to see where you need to go.